construction, once you get to that stage, I feel like a broken record, but I always say it's the stage where you lose most control. It is the point where all of a sudden you're handing over your project to someone else to complete your project.
But these are sort of 5 lumpy stages, and you're going to play around them, and we're going to explain what we do and what we look at and what happens in each stage. But the next stage, stage 3, we've got lockup stage.
Often, again, builder to builder will do things differently.
Yeah.
But at that stage, we often call it pre-plaster stage.
Yeah.
You're locked up. That is the point where we want to walk through. And again, sort of going back to the point where to make a change is going to be less expensive. The builder's going to charge you a couple of $100 versus anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 once it's plastered.
Hey guys, welcome back to Development Tank. Got a ripper today. The 5 most critical stages in your build and what gets done inside those stages and what you should be looking at, what you should be having a keen eye on. We've got Claire here to talk about this. Claire's managing countless projects and has managed countless projects. So really important that if anyone's about to embark on a project, listen to this, learn and figure out some hacks. And guys, remember, if you're doing a knockdown rebuild, dual occupancy or multi-townhouse development, please book a consultation. Let's chat through it. Again, come across to Instagram, come say hello. We've got lots of daily live information coming across, keeping you guys up to date with the property news happening here in Australia. And also get across the Little Fish Network. It's free. Become a fish. littlefishnetwork.com.au. Heaps of cool people in there helping each other. Let's get into it. Claire, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So this one's a good topic today. We've had a couple of these bits of content in the archives, and they've performed well for years on years when we talk about the building stages of a residential project. Let's sort of put that. We're staying residential project. So you could use this for your dual occupancy, multi-townhouse development, and a knockdown rebuild.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not surprised it performs well. I think it's really interesting, and probably construction, once you get to that stage, I feel like a broken record, but I always say it's the stage where you lose most control. Not in a bad way necessarily. It shouldn't be in a bad way, but it is the point where all of a sudden you're handing over your project to someone else to complete your project. So I think that's probably why it gets a lot of traction, this topic. And it's also, I think, would it be fair to say that construction is not everyone has embarked on construction. It's quite foreign to a lot of people. It's a luxury in a lot of ways because it is quite an expensive exercise, whatever you're building these days. So I think it's interesting in that sense that not everyone is across what's happening. We take it for granted because we live and breathe and we work in this space, but it's very foreign. I just think about talking to my friends about it.
Correct. And I think even way back when you thought you knew a little bit about building, I feel like every time you go to a building site, it can remind you how little you know about building and you do it every day. So I think for the punters out there, that even if they've had a little sprinkle of it, I think once you get into it and it's yours and maybe you're the one paying the bills and you're the one paying holding costs and, maybe things aren't going exactly as you want, a base and strong understanding of how the process should around about work out, which you're going to get from today, I think super important to help you ride that build wave that if you're going there and you can understand what's happening somewhat, I think it's not a bad place to be. It can help ease the tension. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's understanding what you need to understand and then letting the builder, of course, do their job. But it's that old saying where, the more you know, the less nervous you are.
Correct. I think the unknown definitely causes stress. And if we can limit a bit of that unknown, it's always a win. So we're going to go through the circa 5 steps. Like we said, you said actually off air, that these are probably your traditional method A stages. Obviously, our contracts, have evolved, and I think they've evolved across the industry somewhat. But these are sort of 5 lumpy stages, and you're going to play around them, and we're going to explain what we do and what we look at and what happens in each stage.
I think these stages are definitely the construction stages. They used to be linked to your payment schedule, is when you said method A, just for people listening, that was the old school or older style payment method.
Yes.
Method B is now preferred and preferred by a lot of people, both clients, both builders and brokers. But ultimately, these are the stages of construction.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking at stage 1, slab stage. So I guess maybe a little bit before the slab gets poured. But what comes to mind when you're thinking about this stage, Claire?
It's my favourite stage. Love a slab. Always loved a slab. I think the main thing is, so if we go before slab, you've got builder has mobilised site, they've taken over, they've set up, they've probably resurveyed, pegged the site, they've done in-ground drainage.
Yeah, so they've got their land surveyor back out to go, here's where everything is, and plot all their points so they can, I guess probably if you put a good slab down in a good position, it's a good chance everything else is going to be in a good position.
Yeah, absolutely. So at that point, you've got all your in-ground drainage, I should say.
Yes.
And then they're doing their concrete reinforcement. Yeah. So if you can imagine all the crossbars, the T-bars, the metal, at that point, that is a pre-slab, I guess, stage. So you're ready to pour. That is a point, I guess, if this is your first time building, that's probably a good point to go out, good stage to go out. And I mean, the only real thing for you to pick up on is potentially if there's drainage in the wrong spot. In saying that, it's not necessary purely because your plans are telling you where the drains are. So I can assure you that your builder has done 5 checks because once that concrete gets poured and that slab is set, they don't want to be cutting it up. So I guess the only real benefit for yourself to go out at that stage, have a look, it's interesting, but if you wanted to check that or change something, again, you're going to slow down the process, so hopefully your plans are pretty tight. I would say that is a stage a builder is checking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we're sort of assuming we've had a good designer on the job. We've contracted a good builder. Go back to some early episodes if you want to know how to contract a good builder. We've got a good builder on deck. But yeah, to send everyone out there to be measuring their plumbing locations, and if it is in the wrong spot for what they say on the plans, good chance the builder at his own cost will make those changes anyway. But I agree. I think it's great to go out there and understand what is in your slab.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ask some silly questions to the builder, whatever. But
it's not crucial though. Probably should say that it's not a crucial stage. Like, well, as we go through this, there's going to be times you need to go out. Yeah.
Correct, 100%. Because, changing the plumbing, changing bathroom locations, suddenly you're
delaying the project.
Correct. Go out there, be curious, but don't go out there to the detriment of the progress.
Absolutely. So that is a point where your building surveyor will go out and they will do what's called a pre-slab inspection.
Yep.
So at this point, they'll check and make sure all your reinforcement, all your structure is correct as per the engineering.
Yes.
They will then provide a pre-inspection slab approval certificate, which then allows the builder to pour.
Yeah, great. So you got some professionals, you got some expertise involved when it comes to pre-slab, and then you pour your slab.
Another good point to make at this stage is at that point, the builder should know and should have informed you if they had either hit rock, dug deeper than what's shown on the plan, hit the wrong type of soil or a different soil to what's on your soil report. I guess I'm going back why I love a slab is because you're out of the ground. There's no risk. Whatever has been contracted, to a project spec and financially, should be smooth sailing from there up because your risk is really usually in the ground.
Yeah, I think that's the underlying sort of excitement that your slab's down, and hopefully there's been no emails come through, subject variation from the builder. But you get a slab, and like you say, everything should be somewhat controllable on top of that slab.
Exactly. So I guess before that slab, you should be aware, and really, if you're going out there pre-slab, it is either to have a look at the drainage for your own learnings, or to discuss that you've hit rock or you've got bad soil.
Okay, great, Claire. So your slab's down, it's cured. Talk to me. Frame stage number 2.
Frame stage is a good stage. Again, you've got another building surveyor inspection. So they're inspecting your stage and you get a certificate once that's approved. But this is a really important stage from our end, and you as a developer or a homeowner, it's the point where you go out and you start to understand your building. You start to be in the spaces, you look at the window locations, so all your windows are framed out. You start to understand, okay, the toilets go in there. I guess even though I think 100 times we say don't make changes once you get to build, this is probably your point. If there is a change, you want to be picking it up now because the chippies are on site, or if not, they're just around the corner because they just finished. But it's a very easy fix at this stage rather than later down the track.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And plans, like we know how to read plans. We've read a lot of plans. And you go through them thoroughly as always, but sometimes, and especially if you're not used to reading plans either, like definitely for people that don't deal with too many projects, for them to scour through a set of plans and pick up every nook and cranny, every tweak, I think would be very hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like you say, to stand there, because as they've gone through the design stage, they've probably imagined this place in their heads. Now they're, like you say, standing there, window there, door there, hallway there, spaces. So I think, important to pick up those things. I just thought about a project of ours.
Fairfield?
Yeah, Gillies, that like how you pick that up on the plans. As I was thinking about saying it, I was like, I'm not going to put us under the bus here, but how you pick that up on the plans, is tricky.
Yeah, for sure.
But then when you're standing there and it's like, oh, yeah, I can see it now. And like you say, it's an easy fix for the chippy, but
Correct.
It just goes to show how important those visits to site to do that due diligence in real life.
Yeah, so that for people listening, that window in that bedroom was centre from frame to frame. But as we're standing there, we're talking about built-in robes being on one side, which automatically means that window was no longer centre. And then you throw the bed in place. Where are we going to put the bed? You start to talk about that particular space. Again, the last point to do design changes, but that doesn't mean you should rely on that stage to do design changes.
Yeah.
That was one item we picked up on the entire frame stage.
Yeah.
And it was lucky we picked it up because it didn't cost us anything. It was an easy fix. The chippies were there.
Spot on. Yeah, you get... Yeah, you if your furniture installer is putting the furniture in for styling, or you're actually moving into the home, whichever the two, and you put the bed and the bed needs to go in a certain location and it's not centre, it's probably it's a bad look.
Yeah, so. And you can think about these over and over at plan stage. You can draw them, but sometimes something like that is missed.
Yeah, spot on. And how many windows? This was in a big dual occupancy project. Like, I'd argue there's 16 windows in each townhouse. There's 32 windows, and we're talking about getting every location exactly right, from joinery to beds to everything. So, so walking through, especially for everyone really, we do it, but especially for people that aren't, used to reading plans all the time, I think going there and living it, because that, like you said, that is the cheapest time to make a change. Love it.
That's a great stage. Once you get your frame certificate approval, that is when the invoice for that stage is usually due. So
that's a nice tick box.
Yeah,
it's not
an
up
easy,
to you. It's
very easy.
Certificate, signed off.
We don't pay until we've got that in hand. Your lender would be the same if you had a lender, but if you're paying cash, then that's a really good line in the sand. I've got my certificate, it's approved, here's payment.
Yeah, I like it. What's because that's the thing, we've got frame stage, but I'm just thinking like brickwork and things like that. Like in your experience, do you find builders maybe tackle any other things throughout, say, frame stage?
Yeah, you might go out and they're finalising or finishing off frame stage, but they've started the brickwork to the garage, as an example.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't need to be done in frame stage. It's more about just probably getting ahead of your schedule.
Yeah, and that's probably, I don't want to go off too far on a tangent, but you mentioned earlier Method A and Method B payment schedules. Obviously, traditionally with the 5 stages, your builder's quite sort of needs to be, if they want their cash flow to be protected, quite strict in what they can do and get paid for. But if you set up a pretty crafty and pretty intelligent Method B, it sort of means that your builder can be incentivized to
move
do
forward.
other things in parallel and get paid for them, which is important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think talking just briefly on that schedule, if you're doing Method be. It's not about giving more money to the builder. It's about giving smaller chunks so that they can continue with smaller areas rather than waiting for an entire lockup stage, so to speak, to be done before they get anything for the roof.
Yeah.
So,
So actually carve out roof and have roof as an item with $1 attached to it. Even
correct.
Like brickwork, brick stage, $1 attached to it.
Exactly. And then it allows them to put the roof on, get paid for the roof, and then work their way down doing lockup.
Yes.
Rather than waiting, having their roofer sitting there not getting paid.
Yeah.
It's just all about that cash flow piece. It's certainly not about, like I said, overpaying the builder, but it's about keeping the builder cash flow positive to make sure your project's not delayed and everyone on site's happy.
Yeah. And
which
the
is
builder
important.
can be like proactively minded to think, I've got the slab there, do I get frame going, brickies going? Like you said, as soon as the frame sort of reasonably, the structure's there, the roof can probably commence, the frame might not even have completed yet, but the roof has started, so he can put an invoice in for brick, roof, frame, and he's getting paid right the way through rather than thinking, I don't want to start that stage because that stage is all the way down in lockup. I've got 4 months,
and
3
I've still
months
got a
until I'm
roofer
going to see that.
who hasn't been paid.
And I've got a trade that's put materials on, fixed it on, sitting there not getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. So it works well in both ways or for both sides, I guess. And your lender always tells you this, but a lot of brokers we have worked with clients, they have just a flat rule that no more than 45% by frame completion. So if you're thinking of your schedule, there should be less than 45. We usually have it sitting about 35. The last 3 contracts we've done are 35 max at frame. Again, the 45% is the old method. It is pretty front loaded. But again, a builder in that old method needs it to be front loaded if they don't have another payment until they're completely locked up. It doesn't need to be front loaded if you've got 35% at frame and your next one's roof because they know they're getting it at roof.
Yeah, spot on. So it's nearly reaching over into the next stage, but obviously that leaves you in a risky position if the builder goes belly up. And I feel like COVID and obviously the amount of insolvencies that's hit the industry has brought all these to a head, and there's probably been instances where they've been paid a bit too much and then the insurer's gone out and sort of said, well, you know, we can't cover you for maybe that, and that's why things have changed up. Very good. So we've got frame stage done. Potentially our builders crept ahead on some other items
for sure.
before we've got our certificate. But the next stage, stage 3, we've got lockup stage. So putting the payment aside, the actual specifics of the payment, definitely consult your contract for that. But lockup stage, services are in. We haven't plastered yet. Would we have insulated potentially?
Often, again, builder to builder will do things differently. But at that stage, we often call it pre-plaster stage. You're locked up. You've got your services in. That is the point where we want to walk through. And again, sort of going back to the point where to make a change is going to be less expensive. This is your point where if you want to add another GPO outlet, if you want to change a light spot, if you think that downlight's in the wrong spot, this is the point where the electrician comes back and changes it because you're pre-plaster.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, obviously the pre-slab inspection, there's not much there for you to see as the owner/developer, but before plaster is really when, like you say, your rough-ins are in. You can start to picturing GPOs, all this sort of stuff. You're going home, you're getting your plans back out, and then, like you say, you add a couple of additions in. You might pay a little bit of cost to get it there, but to wait till plaster's done and everything's progressing quite fast to make changes then obviously is a real headache. And
I think if I'm looking at all the projects that we've got currently being managed and the changes that are made, it is at that inspection or that pre-plaster walk, that lock-up stage, that's the point at which clients make changes. And although you don't encourage changes during the build, I think personally the electrical plan is the hardest to get right every single time. Again, you review it, you make sure, but then when you're on site, you're walking through and you're going, I think I'm going to cook here or I'm going to be here. I think I'll need another GPO. The builder's going to charge you a couple of $100 versus anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 once it's plastered.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. It's, and that's probably looks at your contingency potentially. Like when you allow for these builds and these projects, there is a contingency column.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
if these little bits and pieces are going to cost you extra few $100s, but you're going to be happy with the end product, being a homeowner, developer, you might be a bit more commercially minded, but you still want a good outcome, still want people to walk through at the end and go, oh, this makes sense. I can see myself in here.
Yeah.
Definitely worth those extra few dollars to get it right and be content and peace of mind that, hey, we got this right.
Yeah, so when we go out, that's what we're looking at with the client. I guess another really important aspect of the lockup stage or the pre-plaster, depending what we call it, is the point that if we are to engage a private building inspector, so separate to your building surveyor, which is becoming quite common, they're great reports to have, especially if you're going to sell at the other end. But that pre-plaster or lockup stage is the point where they'll do their first inspection. They can do inspections all along the way, but I believe, or we believe here, that it's the most beneficial.
Value for money?
They'll check everything that is ultimately going behind that plaster. And again, once you put that plaster in, no one's seeing it. So if you're going to get a private building inspector, we would say that is where you're getting your value at that stage.
Potentially a private inspector then to get that paperwork. And the thing is, maybe some advice for the people playing along at home, when you have that private inspector and they give you the report, it gives you a talking point with your builder, rather than maybe you trying to be devil's advocate and trying to negotiate with your builder, sort of say, here's the report, these are things they've mentioned. From my experience, not everything gets done on a private inspector's report. They go absolutely ham. And then
that is their job.
And then when you sit with your builder, and the builder might talk you through it and say, well, that won't be done or can't be done or doesn't need to be done, but I understand maybe where they're coming from. And then they tackle a few of those items. But I feel like for someone that hasn't got a project manager like Little Fish, it gives you hey, Mr. Builder, here you go. Comes from the private building inspector. Can we tidy these things up?
Exactly. And it's just a sanity check. Again, you still, like you said, sit down with the builder, work through it. Your engineer might have comment on it. So there might be a couple of things on frame which the building inspector, again, they're not an engineer. So the builder could have spoken to the engineer and changed a couple of things, and it's completely fine.
Yeah.
But again, it's just another level of sanity check, and I think it's the most valuable if you're going to get a building inspector, independent building inspector.
All right, Claire, stage 4, fixing stage. What do we think when we're in this stage?
So this encapsulates a fair few trades and a lot of work.
Yeah, and a lot of colours, if you like. We haven't had any colours to this point.
You've got your plaster.
We're going to be colourful.
Yeah. You've got your plaster. Often you've got your flooring, depending on your contract and builder. You've got your cabinetry. You've got your waterproofing. You've got your tiler. You've got stone.
Yeah.
Architraves, doors, skirting. Carpets usually at the other end. But you've got a lot. So all of a sudden at the end of this stage, you're nearing completion and it's starting to really feel like a home and look like a home. And I guess in previous stages, you would have approved shop drawings, which are your cabinetry or joinery shop drawings. This is the point, whilst there are a couple of stages within this stage that I would say go and do a site visit, this is really where you don't want to be making changes because it will cost you.
Maybe don't go. Just let them at it.
Because this is like, I think you've said before, they get a run and you see a lot and you see progress photos all of a sudden look like a home, but you need to give them that run.
Everything's been ordered, maybe made off site in a joinery shop. So yeah, it's just coming and getting finished off. So a pivot is costly because materials have been ordered, maybe things have been constructed off site. Yeah, there's a bit to go back with the builder.
Exactly. I would say if you were going to go to an inspection, I think before tiling starts, just for a tile set out to understand the direction they're being laid, if this isn't documented, of course, but that might be a good point to go out. And then the other stages within that area is probably more for learnings and progress. Go and look at your joinery. Go and look at your stone getting installed. But hopefully they've all been pretty tightly signed off.
Go there with, leave your imagination at home and go there with a, hey, this is my house type of mentality.
Absolutely.
So yeah, great. So fixing stage, is done, like you said, we're plaster, we're tiles, we're stone, we're things that get fixed to the house. So I think I like to think of that, but then I like to think of, okay, what's next? What is in the completion stage? If that's fixed stage, the materials that we just mentioned, and the house is really coming into its own, what are the things left in completion stage?
You've got your fit off. So your plumbing fixtures, your lighting, you've got your paint, you've got carpet upstairs, and appliances. Appliances are really, really at the end of completion.
Yeah. But you're thinking maybe sinks, taps.
Correct.
All those
basins,
sorts of things.
shower screens, mirrors in your bathroom.
Yeah.
Final, for lack of a better term, final finishing.
Fixtures and fittings getting fitted off to the materials that were installed during the fixing stage.
Yep, absolutely. And I think at this point, really, it's more about your learning and going through. I think things like wall lights that are getting fitted off, there might be a tiny bit of wriggle room. If you're getting a particular pendant installed, it's nice to be out there to make sure that's getting installed right.
Yeah.
But really, there's no changes to be made at this stage. It's finishing. If, for example, your mirror getting installed, if you want to be on site to make sure that's installed correctly, again, things are documented. So I would say you're pretty home and hosed in this scenario.
Yeah, nice. So things are getting fitted off. Appliances are going in, maybe depending on, unless they're under mount, they're before stone, things like that. Carpet's going in, which is super exciting. Are we looking outside in completion stage?
When you get there, I was thinking that. So yes, we're doing landscaping, probably decking at this point, al frescoes. Landscaping is right at the end. Like when we talk about finishing, it's the last item. But yes, all captured in this completion stage for sure.
Yeah, great. And that's where, like we said, with this method B, if you do get a bit craftier, potentially there's a couple little milestones that might motivate some work to be going on whilst people are fitting off inside, or maybe the builder's motivated to get some hardscaping done, even some soft stuff done outside, to get some stuff going in parallel to bring that handover date forward a bit if possible.
I'll never forget, I came from commercial construction, and I think one of the first projects was completing when I started here at Little Fish, and there was 10% on final payment. And I remember saying to the builder, why don't we start doing this to pick up a bit of time, and we do that area? And that was his response, saying that it's all caught up in the last stage. Why would I do anything that I don't get paid for until that stage?
Yeah.
And that was my moment. I said, how does this even work?
How does this work?
Not that I changed the industry, but we saw it change over that COVID period.
Yeah.
Construction going up, builders going broke, things like that.
Yeah.
But that was one of the biggest things that didn't make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and you think if you cut that in half, 5 and 5, well, your project's getting done quicker. Your builder's got his cash flow, and his trades know that it's going to come.
And you'll notice builders who do only have that 5% left at completion, they're not in a rush to get their last 5%. So what you would see before with the big 10%, and the old method is that the builder would be chasing that final payment even though you weren't happy with the final items, or there might be a couple of trees missing, or they'll be chasing that because they need the cash flow. Whereas I find with method B is that there's 5% left, and it's not paid until the place is shiny and beautiful and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Because they've paid everyone. That's probably just their margin sitting there.
Yeah, spot on. 100%. 100%. So different ways to get crafty and get your progress going. So we've handed over. You're doing your defects walk. I think this is a pretty important one of the things you're thinking about. Are you engaging anyone else to help? What does it look like for someone wrapping up a project, I guess, seamlessly, start keeping a good relationship with the builder and working towards completion together.
I think the private building inspector or independent building inspector is a really good one at this stage. Defects from, I guess, our end are cosmetic. We're not building practitioners. So we go out and, don't get me wrong, Sasha and I pick up a lot of defects often and maybe over the top, but they're all cosmetic. Whereas a private building inspector will check falls of things, they'll take a leveler out, they'll have measurements, they'll know the codes.
Yeah.
we have found that inspection is a really good one to have. It also helps to sell the property. So just to have that knowledge of, hey, we got a private building inspector, just to have that additional level of coverage when you're going to sell a property, but also the peace of mind for things that you're not expected to know as an owner or a client or a developer.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, the level that they go to and the codes that they know is next level. And again, they do a big long list, and at least it's got a point for your builder to say, hey, we get these fixed. Like I said, I've never seen every item on a private building inspector's list get done, but you get 80%, 90% done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to be in a very, very good place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you have had that inspector maybe pre-plaster or the lockup stage, potentially at waterproofing, there's a good chance you're not going to have many items at the completion. And if you do have items, they'll be very easy to fix because they'll be on the face rather than behind the face.
Yeah, awesome. No, I think that's great, Claire. We've got those 5 stages, got some little things to look out for throughout, and explained what is in each stage and the little hacks to what to look out for, questions to ask. So nice work. Anything on that to leave us with?
Probably the main takeaway for me of looking at all the construction stages is go out and learn, but make sure that, or I guess remember that the builder, it is their site. They have insurance on the site, and legally they, I guess, own the site for that construction period. So just be mindful of that. Like, although yes, you are paying them, work with the builder, try not to make changes, don't slow the progress. Let them be the builder.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's the build stage, but even, which we've done in other episodes, but that stage before the build, whether it's your documentation, your interiors, all those sorts of things, if that stage is done really well and really thorough, and you've gone and you've got the right professionals to do their job, I feel like you're setting yourself up for the right build.
Yeah.
So even though we spoke about the build today, I feel like a lot of that work is done pre-build.
Exactly. The main thing is you don't need to go out there as many times as you think you do. It's really a frame, pre-plaster, maybe tiling, and then it finishes.
Yeah, spot on. Just to break it down. Claire, thanks for jumping in and doing that. Great episode. We'll see you in a week or 2.
Thanks for having me.
Please, guys, like, share, subscribe. Anyone that's going to get value out of that. And remember, doing a knockdown, rebuild, development, dual occupancy, please book a consultation below. Get across to Instagram, daily insights, keeping you guys up to date on property news. And get into the Little Fish Network. Questions like today that I was asking Claire are asked in there every day. And it's free. Thank me later, littlefishnetwork.com.au. Happy developing.